This is Bingu Choom and K-pop tunes. I'm Bingu, also known as Lacey.
And I'm Choom, also known as Reina, and you're back for another episode.
And we're just going to talk about dreams versus reality.
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
a
what does
fun
that
episode
mean?
today.
It's a mystery. It's
What does
not.
that mean, though, Lacey? Explain to us.
Well, did I come up with this idea?
I don't know. I think it was a shared thing.
Yeah, 'cause I can't even remember. I feel like our minds are one at this point. So we felt like it'd be interesting to talk about how we felt when we first got into K-pop in regards to like Korean culture, some dreams we wanted to achieve, like an example. I know a lot of people went to teaching in South Korea after they get into like K-pop and stuff, and comparing that to your current self. And I just felt like that would be fun since we've been in K-pop for a long time.
Very long time.
And I do feel like some of the stuff we view is differently now.
I agree. Because I could say when we first got into K pop, and I feel like this might be very similar with a lot of fans. When you first get into K pop, you're very much of the mindset of like, oh, I want to go to Korea. I want to live there. I want to be near my idols. So even if you don't like see them on the street, sort of thing, you have a higher chance of getting into like fan signs. And so there was always a lot of talk of studying abroad
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. And I feel like because when you get into K-pop, you ultimately kind of transgress into getting into the Korean culture as well. Like the two just kind of go hand in hand. The more you watch about your idols, the more shows you watch them on, you kind of end up delving into their culture
Mm-hmm.
and seeing how they live, and you're just like, oh, I'm interested in going there. But I think definitely as time has changed, or like as time has gone on, that has kind of changed, because like it's nice to want to do those things, but then I don't know how to explain it.
I think
Reality kind of hits, I
you
guess.
could say reality, but I think you just develop as a person. You just you get older. Like that's
That
so
too.
sad to say. Like you get older and like
Things change.
your viewpoints change or just the way you look at things change. So since we're just talking about the desire to go to South Korea and to even to the point of like living there, we could just start there because I feel like that's very common. I know I wanted to live there for a year or two when I first got into K-pop because I just felt like the culture was just really interesting to me, and it was just really refreshing seeing it from you know YouTubers and like you said through K dramas. I don't watch K dramas, but like watching the Korean shows like Running Man or even people showcasing like the markets and everything. I thought that was so cool and I wanted to go. And as I'm older now, I still want to go, but it's not as strong of a desire. And I think for me, what changed was to see a lot more people that looked like me sharing their experiences about living in South Korea. And while a lot of people have really good experiences living there, it is very much black and white over there still. And that's just a really big turnoff to me. Even though they say like they're always saying like it's not as bad, but I did experience like I know there's the common story is like they can't get into certain places. Even if you and I've heard it from not only just, black people, but also white people where they're denied entry into like the clubs or they're sometimes you could get scammed for like going to karaoke, the classic people are just staring at you. I've heard that so much. I don't think that's really gonna bother me. Uh, but it's really I think if I were to go, I would not go by myself. I think that would be a mistake. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know. I
I
will
think
say, like, because obviously I'm into anime too. I'm right now I'm more interested in going to Japan, but it's not specifically for anime. It just seems like there are a lot of more places I would like to travel to in Japan compared to like South Korea. And everyone's experience is not the same. I'm just a little bit more cautious about going to South Korea. So that was my viewpoint that changed.
I think for me, it's actually the opposite.
But
Yeah, just and I only say that because when I was in college, I was not a great student. Like I was just having a hard time with classes and I had it in my head that I really wanted to study abroad, but even though our school had a study abroad program for going to Korea, because obviously, as you know, my roommates for a whole year were Korean. So we had like an exchange program, but didn't have like a language class offered for Korean. And so I always thought like, oh, it'd be a lot harder to just go there and make the transition. And then I was a science major, so it really didn't tie into what I was studying. And so I was like, how could I make this work? I really want to do it, but I can't figure out. And then classes just got to the point where they were intense and I kind of like put it on the back burner and stopped thinking about it, which is why I think you kind of I saw you like kind of transition and take a break from K-pop for a while and I kind of like delved more into it.
yeah, I
And
applied and I was really close,
I
but
remember that.
it made me
But like
really depressed.
oh, I do remember that. But like I remember you transitioning kind of like out of K-pop and I kind of was like I got more into it. I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that I couldn't go study abroad. It kind of has to do with the fact that I did essentially drop out of university
Mhm.
just because I needed a distraction, and that's how I got into Monster X. They debuted like the year that I dropped out of university, so that just lined up really well. But I kind of just put it on the back burner because I was like, it doesn't make sense as a science major to go, even though I really want to go and I want to travel. And like, Dad traveled, and he always really liked Korea and Japan. Those were two of his favorite places that he went to, but I just couldn't figure out how to like make it work as a science major. And so I took a break and I started working. And while I was working, I just really got into K-pop more because it kind of just helped me keep my sanity and not be so depressed about dropping out of university and not graduating. And in that time frame, I started working in the hotels, and I spent the last like 7 years of my life working in the hotels. And so this is kind of where I think it's the opposite for me. I've actually become more interested in traveling to Korea and even living there. Like Jeremy and I talked about doing it for a year or two, but then I got a new car and I was like, I don't want to leave my car behind. And the only reason we kind of discussed it was because I worked in hospitality. And so my mindset was like, if I learn Korean, which I'm trying to do more actively now that I have time on my hands, I was like, if I learn Korean and I get a job in a hotel, like I'm in the travel industry, I can utilize the language that I've learned and I can also do something that I really enjoy because even though hospitality kind of sucked my soul out at points, I really did like the job industry. And so I was like, it'd be just cool to go live there for a couple of years just to live abroad and get that experience and be able to kind of put everything I liked about hospitality together into one thing. And for me, like I want to visit Japan just because you brought it up. I want to visit Japan, but Jeremy doesn't like seafood, and Japan is literally
Mhm.
covered surrounded by the ocean. So that kind of takes less of a priority because I know living in Japan, just from watching vloggers, is a lot cheaper than living in Korea.
Mhm.
But considering things. I'm just like, Jeremy doesn't like seafood. He wouldn't be able to eat a whole lot. We both love Korean food. I like will cook Korean food at home just because I'll watch a K drama and I'll be like, I'm craving this, and then I'll go and make it. So I think it's the opposite for me. I'm in college, it seemed more of like this thing that was just unattainable. And I dreamed about it for a little bit, mainly because I was like, I want to be near my idols. That was the mindset. I was like 18.
I think everybody has that
But now,
mindset.
yeah, literally.
Maybe I'll run into my bias at a cafe.
But now I'm like older. And so I think about it and I'm just like, I could make this work if I really wanted to.
Mhm.
There's just certain things that I'm also not willing to sacrifice. Like, where am I gonna store
Your
all of our
car.
books?
This
My
girl is
my
saying
brand
her
new car.
car.
My brand new car. It's brand new. I love that car. But then my like books. Where am I gonna? I
Maybe
can't.
I'm not a car person. You got storage. You have
Uh,
storage, Raina.
I know, but
Oh my goodness.
maybe I'll just.
Deliver the car here and I'll look after it. I'll turn it on, make sure it, doesn't just sit there and collect dust. But yeah, like that is different, and I think it's just because you have a goal, and like I feel like you have legitimate reasons for that goal. It's just like the same when I was in school and I was like, oh, I really want to study abroad. I feel like that's just like perfect
Yeah.
for me to be able to experience a different culture while in school. It was just the school I was at. They didn't pick me because they're just like, what are we about to do with this graphic designer
And see,
overseas?
that's why I couldn't figure out a reason to make the science thing work. Not on top of the fact that I wasn't doing
Science.
well
I feel like you had
anyway.
a better chance. Me. Maybe I don't know. I don't, I'm not pressed over it anymore. Things happen for a reason. And I feel like you were able to realize what you really wanted despite what has happened to you. So you better figure it out. You better deliver the car to me. I'll, I'll have a reason to I have more of a reason to visit. And it's not to say like I don't like South Korea because that's just not true at all. There are a lot of places I would love to go there just to go to all the cafes. Like
Yeah.
their cafes are on a whole other level. It's insane.
Yeah. Literally. Like you can't find cafes like that here
No,
anywhere.
so boring over here with
It really is.
Starbucks.
And that's another thing, another reason that I kind of just want to travel there, even if it's not to stay. Like, staying would be the ultimate for a couple years. I think I would really like to do that just for the experience to live abroad. And
Hmm.
like, I've talked with Jeremy about living in other countries, not just South Korea,
Hmm.
but South Korea too. They're like architecture and just walking down the streets and seeing photos of what how modern mixes with like older architecture. It's just really pretty.
They're just very
I just want to walk.
creative over there. And I wonder, it makes you wonder what their, what do you call them? Not policies, but whenever you're building something or you're putting like signage up, you have to get approval from the county.
Yeah.
So I wonder how lax it is over there when it comes to stuff. Not even talking about like the outside exterior. I'm just talking about, the inside. Cuz it's just really creative in there. And everywhere you go, and it's what you said, it's modern and traditional mixed together, and it always works. Like no one over there wants to leave behind the history.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too, just from my dad's experience, because when he traveled there, he just kind of learned a lot. A lot
Mhm.
of it, I believe, has to do with the fact that they had to rebuild after the war.
Mhm.
And the United States gave them money for that. And so I know some of the architecture is like they kind of looked at America to it from what he said with like the companies that he worked with because he was a civil service engineer. So he worked with like engineers, but he had just mentioned like you can walk and you'll see a portion that just kind of the street that kind of looks American, and then you'll be on the next block and it'll be like Korean. like traditional old Korean, and that to him wasn't like a culture shock, but that to him was very interesting.
It is interesting. Well, I could talk about that all day, to be honest. But I feel like it's a good start. Another one, it's not as serious, but when I first got into K-pop, I felt like it was really important to have an ultimate bias. You have to have one. You can't look anywhere else. You have to have an ultimate bias. And now I'm older, and I'm just like, why limit myself? Why can't everybody be my bias? I just like everybody so much. Why? Why do I want to play myself that way? So I'm not like, I will always stand like my biases from when I first got into K-pop, but I feel like that really changed with BTS for me. I think that was the only group where I was just like, man, I don't know who my bias is. It jumps around so much. And I was like, why am I stressing myself out over this when I could just be
Bias
obsessed with
everybody.
everybody?
Yeah. Give everybody love. Everybody gets a
Yeah.
little bit.
Like you'll always have that bias record. Like why? Just name them your bias too.
I do think that's just a shift in K-pop culture as well, because I know it was always very important to have a bias. Like that was a thing in K-pop, and I've noticed now that it's more common to have like a bias wrecker, double bias, like
I've never heard of double
um,
bias.
that just
Interesting.
that just means that you have multiple biases in one
All
group.
right, go us.
Robbie has 3 biases in Monster X. Like, it's just one of those things that I think has shifted as the times have shifted.
But thank
Peop
God.
I think it was more common during our time too, when we got into K-pop, is
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by our time. I think it was more common that
It was so long
yeah,
ago.
right. I think it was more common though that solo stands were like a thing, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that they were a lot more hardcore about who they were solo standing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of how, just being into K-pop so long, I think that's where I've watched things shift, where like everybody had one bias for a group, and now it's like I bias the whole group. I bias these two members. I have a bias and a bias wrecker.
Well, I hope that continues because I'm really tired of people stealing cards from Target.
Seriously.
Because that's like,
I'm
why are
still
we doing that?
I am still missing one of the Monster X English albums because somebody ripped the cards out and opened it, and I was like, I'm not buying
What?
this. Ugh,
Gosh, I don't like. It's
that's so
never that deep. Like whenever I ordered albums through you, and I go through the album obviously, and then you have the
yeah.
cards. I'm like, wow, I don't know who this is, but they're beautiful,
And then you hang them up on your
and I put them on my
wall.
wall. Like I don't know who that is. I just know they
Lacey
killed the shoot. Like they did
Lacey's so loyal. She joins my group orders and she doesn't even know.
that. I'm just like, what group was that? Where I was like, pick whatever one.
I think it was the boys. You joined
Oh
one of
yeah, I think I
one
liked
of
all
theirs.
the album covers, and I was like, you
And
can
they
just
have
pick.
11 members, and you liked their music but you didn't know the members, so you were like, just pick for me.
And I
And
think
sometimes
Camilla picked one. Did Camilla pick
I
one?
think so.
Yeah, she picked one. I was like, surprise. I like surprises. Like, that's fun to me.
That's why I don't really mind. Like, I'm collecting Juhan more for Monster X stuff, just because I'm doing the group orders and I have the capabilities, but like I have a
And it's
bunch of
Juhan.
Monster, and it's
Duh.
Shuhan, yeah, duh. But I have a bunch of Monster X photo cards that I still enjoy opening the albums and being like, look, it's Hyungwon, look, it's Minhyuk, I got
Hmm.
Shonu. Like I still keep everything that I pull from my albums, and then like I get all the Juhan stuff as well. But I still enjoy like getting the other members. That's not a problem at all.
Hmm.
Going off of your topic though about like the biases, I think for me that also changed, more so in the sense that I actually never really minded having like two biases in a group. Like I didn't always have a single bias. Like BAP, for example,
Hmm.
Jongsup and Daehyun.
I
I
mean,
could never.
That's
I
fair.
could never choose between them.
Yeah.
So there were groups like that for me where I definitely had multiple biases, but I was the same thing with like the ult. Not so much you had to have an ult bias, like that was you had to have an ultimate, but more so in the fact that like if you had an ultimate, like you can only have one ultimate bias. You can't look away from them and
You're
that
cheating.
sort of thing. Yeah, you're cheating sort of thing, like you're unloyal. And I remember when Juhan came along and I finally was like, I think I'm having an issue like with my bias list. I remember texting you and Robbie and just being like look, I got into them when I dropped out of high school or dropped out of college. I was in a bad mental state. Robbie sent me all of the Monster X things because they had just come out with Shine Forever, I think, or not Shine. It was around that era though, but oh, Stuck. They had just really Stuck that summer. And so it was a few months to a year ish after they debuted. But I had told Robbie, because she'd been into them when they debuted, I
Hmm.
told Robbie, I was like, I want to learn them now. Like, send me stuff. And so she sent me all of the Monster X Ray shows, like all 3 seasons. 2 or 3 seasons, I think it
That's
was.
where addiction started.
And yeah, and I just remember watching all of that and like Juhan caught my eye because I was not in a good mindset at that point. And I just looked at him and then I found out our birthdays are literally a day after each other, a day and a year
Isn't
after
that
each other.
nice?
It is. But I like was looking at him and I was like, man, I want to be like him. Like I want to be that confident. I want to be that funny. I want to be just like that all rounded, be able to get along with everybody. Like I just was looking at him and he was making me happy, but he was also instilling me with like confidence of like I want to change myself. I want to get out of this funk that I'm in.
Hmm.
And then I went through 1 or 2 comebacks with them, I think, and Alligator era came along. And that's when I texted you and Robbie, and I was like, I don't know
Oh,
what to do.
damn.
Because I got so attached to him, but I'd had Zico as an ultimate bias
I know. I
for
like when you announced
so
that, I was like, she's
for
sick.
so
What is wrong with
long.
her?
Yeah. I had him as an ult though for so long that I was like, how do I change things now? Like it's been this long. It feels weird to change things. It feels weird to have like it in our generation of K-pop, it was always like an ultimate bias is your one and only. Like that is the
Yeah, like
top person.
it was that
It
deep.
was, and so it was weird to, like, change it, and the younger
Mhm.
generations are like, "Oh, I have 3 ultimate biases," and I was like,
Against the
"What?"
rules.
Yeah. So, that has shifted for me, obviously, because now Juwan is here.
I still can't even. I mean, I can believe it, but when it first happened, I was like, "This is crazy." Like, I never even thought you would have someone that would be able to do that. The
Usurp
power.
usurp Zico.
I was just shocked. I mean, you can like whoever you can bias like whoever you want. It's just like you. That was him. Zico. He was that guy. Like nobody else.
And it was that way for so long, like, Zico, it was nobody else,
I was like,
like
she's just playing. She doesn't care.
Nope, Juhan.
And it's
He's
fine.
Juhan.
You
I
still like Zico, but
no, I still
it's
like Zuko.
legitimate.
They're
Juhan
both
is like they're both really good people.
they are, and they're both my ultimates for different reasons. And my whole mindset with that is like they've done different things for me at different points in my life.
Hmm.
And that just goes back to what you said about like the growing and changing as a person. Like Zico was my ult and is my ult, but Zico really like had a presence in my life during a time that's what like I needed him for, I guess is a good way to put it. And Juhan has come along during another point in my life that was like a turning point that I needed his personality for that, I
Hmm.
guess is a good way. Like they've both because like obviously a lot of people choose biases not just because like they're pretty or they're their favorite member, but all like the support that that idol brings to them.
Yeah, you feel like you either feel like you can relate to them or just really make you
Yeah, and Zico and Juhan have both done that for me at different points in my life when I really needed them, and so
happy. Hmm.
that's why they're my 2 boys.
And that's fine.
It is. Now Juhan and I are best friends.
You guys really are best friends.
I
Like,
actually found out during the high touch. at the concert, I had a
Mhm.
friend in line ahead of me. She was walking through and she said hi to everybody, obviously. And I said hi to Hongwon. And then it was Minhyuk and I said hi. And Minhyuk recognized me. But then I got to Juhan and I was like, Juhan, hi. And I like yelled at him and he recognized me. And I recognized that he recognized me because it was a very loud like area. Obviously, everybody was
Mhm.
interacting with the members. But it was funny because my friend was like, he yelled back at you. He was like, "Hey!" And he like yelled back. And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Do you not remember
Like,
this?"
girl, she yelled. He
I,
yelled at you.
I
Did he
was
yell at anybody else?
like, I was like, "No, I don't remember this." I was like in my own like trying to retain every little detail that I could. And she
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, he yelled so loud and so excitedly at you that I looked away from IM and I don't remember my interaction with IM."
Dang.
And so I feel so bad for her, but at the
She's
same
gonna have
time,
to get another high touch and
right?
apologize.
But at the same time, I'm like, Juhan yelled at me?
You yelled at him.
I yelled at him, but he went,
You yelled
"Hey,
at each other.
we're buddies now."
You guys like FaceTime each other, text each other, and you can't hang out, so you can't do that. But you do those other things. That's why I told you, I was like, just call him. That's what it feels like at this point.
Yeah, let me just open one of these old
I
Kakao
mean,
chats
it
that
could
has his
work.
name on it.
It could work. It really could. I feel like you had a higher percentage to like get a response back on Twitter. I'm like, that's the girl. We're best friends. That's what Shuhan would say. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, because I am having trouble thinking of things. So if you have ideas.
Okay. Well, another one would be, can't judge me for this because I was young, but when you watch, even especially if you're like really into K dramas, I can see this happening when you first get into K pop, or yeah, or I guess it would be Korean culture. You, I won't say you. I, for a short time, thought that Asian men were probably better than other races in regards to relationships. And then I got older and I realized all men are basically the same. And it doesn't matter. And thank God, because wow, I would have been very disappointed. But I think the K dramas will make you feel that way, especially when it's romantic.
Yeah, I can see that because I think it's a lot of it is just a culture thing in general. Like the way they
Hmm.
K dramas don't really align with American shows and the way like
At all.
characters are just like acted out and portrayed.
Hmm.
And a lot of Korean shows are just that K dramas. Like they're dramatic. They don't have just like a TV show that you can turn on and it feels like a regular TV show, I guess is a good way to say it.
Yeah. And I
Like
mentioned dramas too, but also like even idols. Like it's their
yeah.
job to make you feel, really special. And like they're the ideal type. Listen, it's okay. I still have my ideal type. I still feel like it's Jungkook. I just really feel like I can't even keep a straight face. I just really feel like we would just get along so well. But that's not a guarantee. Like I'm older now and I'm just like there's always going to be a guarantee where you meet somebody and they just do not reach that expectation. And the flower boy you're thinking about, uh he's probably out there. It's they're called your soulmate, but don't assume everybody is like that.
Yeah. I can't remember ever having a specific opinion about that,
Hmm.
to be honest, even though I've watched a lot of K dramas and watch still a lot of K dramas. I do remember looking at it and thinking, like, wow, would it be nice if this could happen? Like, this
Oh,
kind
I
of
wish I did
relationship.
run into a CEO and
Yeah, like, or this situation, or like how kind they are. Like, that'd just be nice to happen. But I don't ever remember having like the perception that like Asian men were overall better, especially just watching vlogs of people that lived in Korea. It always just seemed like I was just watching the wrong vloggers or something because they would always kind of tell stories about how Asian men were just really, or at least the Korean men that they were running into, were really just interested in like their skin color and not them, whether they
Oh
were
no,
white
I'm
or
talking
black.
about before even. That's a whole different story because even just people that I've taught over there, like yeah, vlogging. The people, and it's really sad. Like a lot of their experiences, like oh, it's not really serious when they date, and sometimes it is like a fetish for some people to date foreign women. It's just like stereotypes, you know. Every we're still in a world where we stereotype, and for foreigners when they are over there, they are stereotyped of being more loose and
Yeah.
yeah, like the vlog thing, and and people just talking about their experiences. Definitely.
Well, I think that falls into the idea of like Asian men must be perfect, like
Mm-hmm.
that
Nah,
kind of just
girl.
like yeah, no, they all men want, well, not all men, but most
Not
men want the
all.
same thing,
It's not everybody, but like, yeah, it's definitely like the BS that you deal with is probably going to be the same.
no matter where you go. So yeah, I don't remember really having a perception for that, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Another one. Hmm. Well,
Learning Korean,
oh
let's
yeah.
talk about that. I
I
know,
mean, I haven't really changed like my stance on Korean. Like
same.
really, I really wanted to learn it when I first got into like K-pop and stuff, and even now, I still really want to learn it. Uh, I really want to learn that in Japanese because I feel like with as much as I'm into with both, I think the culture deserves that, and I deserve
Yeah.
that.
I haven't changed my standpoint either. I really wanted to learn it back when I got into K-pop. Became even more determined to learn it in college, but we didn't have like a college class for it, so I took Chinese instead. Enjoyed Chinese, didn't have anybody to practice it with, so it kind of fell off. But just something curious that came out of that is my want to learn it is still about the same, and obviously I don't work at the hotels now, so I have a little bit more time and effort to put in to learning it, so I'm getting
Mhm.
significantly better at reading it. Still don't have anybody to like practice with,
That's the thing.
so talking is a different story,
Yeah.
but like I can read, not like I'm
She
not
could read, guys. She
at
could
like
read.
an elementary school
She
level,
can read.
but I can still, I read things and I'm like, "Whoa, I know what that says."
That
Or
is
like
so
I
cool.
can read it in Korean, but I don't know the words, so I can't like translate it, but I can read it enough
Yeah.
that I can like actually read the Korean, and then somebody's
Mhm.
like, "Do you know what it says?" And I'm like, "No, but I pronounced it. I read it."
Yeah.
But one thing that I find curious about that is I've actually told Jeremy this about wanting to learn Korean is in high school I took Spanish because my mom, we lived in an area where the demographic was mainly Spanish speaking. And so my mom made me take it, and I didn't like it just because I wasn't interested in it at that time. I was
Mhm.
interested in like Korean and Japanese. I was into anime and K-pop. This was high school. And I remember my Spanish teacher telling us like it's easiest to learn a language not by translating or writing what you want to say in your native language and then translating it into the language and then saying it, or if somebody says something to you, translating it in your head. She was like, those things should come naturally to you. Like, you shouldn't have to actually think about the translation and think about it. And that's how the language is going to come easiest to you. And I never really understood that because I was like, well, English is my first language. So how do I not translate something? Well, I started learning Korean on my own, more so after my roommates moved out. And I realized after my roommates left and went back home to Korea after being surrounded by the language for a year, I would
Mhm.
sometimes, like, if I'm thinking in my head, sometimes I'll just randomly like replace a word that I know in Korean for like what it is in English.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
No, I mean it makes a lot of
So
sense.
like in my head, half of my thoughts, not even half, like 75% of my thoughts are English, and then there's a 25% where 5 words in this English thought happen to be Korean because I
It
know
just
it.
it just proves that the best way to learn a language is to really immerse yourself in the culture or around people that speak that language.
It is. And like I lived with my roommates for a year. I listened to K-pop a lot and then I watched K-dramas, and so I think it's just I finally understood what my Spanish teacher meant at that point of like
Hmm.
you shouldn't have to think about it. I
No, that's
don't
true.
I don't think about it. Like the Korean words will just naturally replace themselves in my head, and then I'm like, "Wait a second, I'm thinking in two different languages
That's
here."
how I am with watching anime, even playing like video games. The mobile games, there are a lot of things I know that I don't need translating. Like, oh my gosh, like 29 years, baby, and this is where we are.
I literally 28. And
It's
they
been a
say
long time coming.
and they say learning a language gets harder as you get older, but I think if you put the practice into it, it doesn't matter how difficult it is. Like if it's something you want to do it anyway. Don't let it deter you because people tell you like, "Oh, learning a language is harder when you get older."
No, I just think the difficulty is like finding people that you can actually
Yeah.
use a language with. I think that's what really stopped me, to be honest. I didn't really have
Yeah.
anybody. When I got into intermediate Korean, like I was in there. I don't know how I got there, but I mean, you're farther ahead than I am, and I just
I
wish
don't think so. I can read
you
and
can
that's
read.
all I can do.
You could
But I
read.
can't read perfectly. It's like
No,
elementary level
I
reading,
I
Lacey.
read below
It's like
that.
elementary level reading, and I look at Idol's tweets and I'm like,
But
I know these
you
5
used to
words.
well, I don't know. I think you still you would
Sometimes,
translate.
if I 100% know what is being said, I'll translate it.
Okay.
But a
But
lot of
I'm
people
just proud I can still read Korean. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
that's the thing, a lot of the stuff is like, I can read it, I don't know what you're saying,
I'm here
but
for a good time.
man, I can read it. Just gonna go up and impress somebody with
Yeah.
my reading skills and be like, "Oh,
We
you
need to
wanted
do
me to
better.
translate that?
Yeah.
Sorry."
That's why I feel like I'm just on the fence with what I want to learn first. Like Korean because I've learned it, and then like Japanese because obviously that's not going anywhere. Like I'm always gonna like anime,
Yeah.
or like I really want to play more Japanese games. So it'd be more beneficial for me to learn Japanese.
Yeah.
But but both of them are so, I want to learn both. I want to do it both at the same time. But I feel like I would play myself. That'd be very overwhelming for me, I think. So that's why I'm just kind of like, what do I want to do
Do.
first?
Yeah.
Because I can obviously understand more Japanese than I can understand Korean too. I can understand some phrases in Korean because I've heard it enough. I just learning a language, guys. It's just learning, learning,
Yep.
learning is not.
And it's the application part
Oh, for sure.
as well. Like, at least for me, if I get to that point, I obviously have my roommates that I can talk to, but it's not like I can call them and do verbal conversation all the
It's
time.
so verbal. That's what it is.
Yeah, like I can text them and it'd be fine, but the verbal is what I need practice with. And since
Mm.
they're in a different time zone, that's not easy to do. But
We should learn, but
that's one
we
that
need to
stays
learn
the same.
together and struggle
Yeah.
together. But what else? Hmm. I feel like it'd be
Um,
cheating for me to be like, I'm not as pressed over comebacks now, and that's just a given because I haven't really been into it like that. Like I'm trying to get back into it, so when comebacks happen, I'm just like, oh wow, I didn't know this was planned.
I definitely, especially after I took my mini break from K-pop, I definitely only pay attention really to the comebacks that like I want of groups that I'm like really into. And then I pay attention to other comebacks obviously for the podcast, but it's more in the sense of like my playlists that I used to do.
Oh, for sure.
I used to go through and do like every single comeback that there was. And I think last year I finally decided like I can't do that. I
That's
can't keep
crazy.
up. It's insane to want to do that. I'm only going to focus on the groups that I know or that I like or that I usually like. And then if I happen to come across a comeback that was 5 months ago and I'm like, whoa, I like this title song and add it to the playlist, then okay. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm limiting myself more with
I understand why you did that though in the first
yeah,
place.
I'm limiting myself now though, and it's a
Mhm.
lot better because not that I wasn't enjoying it before, but it's more fun for me now because like I'm going through comebacks with the intent of like I'm doing this for our podcast, and
Mhm.
then I have my comebacks that are happening on the side that I'm like Monster X, win us, yay! So
So,
I'm
like, when you
just
pick those, like, you're not that hasn't changed for me. I am still listening to your whole album. I'm gonna listen.
no, I still listen to the whole album too, but I've instead of like every single comeback that's happening, instead of going through every single comeback's album, I've only been
Oh, you've only done it to one that you really liked.
yeah,
Okay.
like if I really liked the title song, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll like something on the album too. Go
Mhm.
listen to the album. Whereas in the past, it used to be every comeback, whether I liked the title song or not, I would go
Mhm.
listen to the album.
I
I've cut that out a little bit because it was just not feasible to go through albums that are anywhere from 2 to 10 songs.
I think
I
I'm still the same with that. I just can't like I'm still on the train of like there's so much music out there that you have not listened to that you will love. And this is one of them. So you may not like this, but surely there's something else on the album. I guess it does depend on the group. Like obviously, I think when it comes to girl groups, I feel like I'm gonna like at least one song. I don't know. The girl groups they be going off on the albums.
I can agree to that, but I just have not I don't do it for, like, every single one now, is what
It's
I'm
just yeah. Mhm.
and it's not to say I only do it for the ones that I like, but I'm just a little bit more cautious with, like or, like, I don't hold myself to the fact that, like, I'm 5 months behind, I haven't listened to all of these albums in the last 5 months. I
Mhm.
just kinda do it at my leisure now, and I kinda do it depending on, like, do you like this group? Do you also like this title song? Like, GOT7, I liked the title song, I also like the group, go listen to the album.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas I'm trying to think of somebody else that's not the same.
Mm.
But there's been other groups where I'm like,
Who
"I
else
don't really
do?
know this group, but I liked the title song. Let's go listen to the album." Or, "I do know this group. I didn't really like that title song, but I like the group and I know them. Let's go listen to the album."
That's me too. Like surely there's something. There's got to be something on
I'm
the album.
just I'm just not holding myself to it as
Mhm.
frequent. Like I used to be obsessed with like, "You
Oh,
have to listen to
these
every
are
single thing."
we
I'm
lose our
not
heads.
yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So that's one thing. And then going off of like comebacks, I've stopped spending so much money on K-pop as well. Well, I guess that's
Mm,
relative. That could be relative.
it depends on what.
I've stopped spending so much money overall on K-pop, but not on Monsta X. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I used to buy if I liked the group, like liked the group and liked the whole album, I used to buy the album, even though I liked the group, but I wasn't really like into them. So like, I would have these photo cards and stuff, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with these? I liked the album, but I didn't really want the album to like collect the photo cards or anything. So I stopped doing that, and I'm only really buying albums for Monsta X now, and then every once in a while, like One Us. I'm behind on One Us albums, but there are some other and like the boys. I'll buy their albums, but I've limited myself in purchasing as well. I don't just go crazy with like I like this group, I
Hmm.
like this album, I'm
I
gonna buy
spotted my
it.
addiction like the moment I put up like 3 K-pop posters in my room when I was in college. I was like, okay, I see where this is going,
Yeah,
and
right.
need to stop
That's
because
another reason I've stopped too, is because like the posters, as much the posters I really used to like when I was younger, but now I'm not like I don't use them as much.
and it sucks because they look so good, but where
They
the heck are you
do.
gonna put all those posters?
Posters, literally.
And like, you don't want to keep explaining to people every time they enter the home. Listen, they just look good. I love K-pop.
I actually had some guys a year ago now, I think it was, deliver our couch from IKEA. And they walked in, and the guy like looked at my walls because I have some posters up still. He looked at the walls and he was like, do you like K-pop? And I was like,
No, I hate it.
and I was like, yeah, because I didn't know if he actually knew what it was. And he was like, do you know BTS? And I was like,
Here
yeah.
you go.
And he like, well, I mean, I couldn't fault him if
Oh
that's all he
no, it's just
knows.
no. I mean, that's literally like
And
that's literally all people know.
I
It's
know.
before that it was like Big Bang.
Yeah, but it was just so funny because he turns to his co-driver who was helping him deliver because it was a long couch with a lot of boxes that he brought stuff up the steps. He like turns to his co-driver and he was like, "This guy likes BTS too."
It's so
And it was just
interesting.
it was so random too because I was
The
like,
connection, like you guys could be friends because you both like the same thing.
yeah.
I think
That
that's
and
cute.
that's how his mind was working. So it was very random, very funny. He was so nice though. And then they forgot a part of my delivery and he came up weeks later and he like remembered who I was and he was like, "You still got the posters up?" And I was like, "Yeah." But it actually spurred a conversation when he was like when he saw the posters, he was like, "Do you like K-pop?"
That
He
feels good though.
his co-driver, he like pointed at him and after he was like, "This guy likes BTS too." He was like, "We just had a whole conversation. He was teaching me all about K-pop on the way up here because they came from
Aw,
Phoenix and that's a 2-hour drive." And I was like,
you know
"That's
all the
cute."
members in all the hit
And
songs.
it was like a big burly guy with a beard and a little like college kid sized guy. Like
That's so nice.
it was just not people
I
you
love
would
it when
look
it's
at.
moments like that. That's why I always have like anime merch all over the place. And someone's always like, "Oh my god, is that Itadori?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. Are you reading it?" It's like you instantly become friends, and that's okay.
It is.
We're like best friends.
Just because of this one thing. We have this one thing in
One
common.
thing, I talked to a girl at the drive-through for like 5 minutes before I pulled off because we were just talking about anime. Because you saw the back of my phone,
That's
and that was
cool.
so magical to me. I love moments like that. And then when people see my keychains on my purse, my tote bag, yeah, that's Demon Slayer.
That's how I make friends in K-pop concert lines. My bag that I used to now they want you to do clear stuff for COVID, but the bag that I used to carry had like
I don't
pins
think they
for
want
Block
you to do
B.
that for COVID. I think they want you to do that for
Yes, but
friends.
also COVID too. They don't have to touch your
Really?
belongings anymore. Like
Oh,
when I went into the
that's weird.
concert this last time, last week? It's been a week.
It's only
Last
been a
week.
week. I feel like it's been like
It's been
longer.
10 years already. When I went into the concert this last time, all I literally had to do, the lady was like, "Can you just lift your bag up?" And I like lifted it and turned it around and she was like, "Okay, you're good." And then I had like a jacket on. And so she like a denim jacket. So she was like, "Can I pat your jacket and check your pockets?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." So I lifted my arms and that was all that it was. She was like,
Well, that's
"Okay,
what
you're
they
good."
do in Atlanta. They've always did that.
But like they used to let you take like small like if the bag was the size of your hand or a little bit bigger or like within certain measurements, they used to let you take like bags. But now like this, at least the venue I was at for Phoenix, they were like, "We want you to have clear bags." And they've specified on the site like it limits staff contact with your belongings. I'm
Like,
sure
girl,
it's for
nobody has
guns.
clear bags like that.
I know. I'm sure it's for guns too, obviously. But literally, like I said, she just was like, "Can you lift your bag? Okay, can you turn it around?" And I did. And she was like, "Okay, you're good." And I was like, "Oh, that was quick and easy."
Mm-mm.
Because at the Staples Center, they wanted me to put it in a thing. And then they went through a metal detector. And then they opened it on the other side. And I was like, this is a way different experience.
It's just different wherever you go.
Yeah.
Well, I
Anything
don't
else you can think
know.
of?
I mean, if it's not like popping into my head, I guess it's not that
Not.
drastic of a change.
Well, that
I
was
still love
fun.
K-pop.
Yeah, I still love K-pop too. It's just interesting too to see like how and a lot of it, like you said, is just how we've grown and changed as people.
Yeah, I
But I
think
think that's
just
just a K-pop thing. I think it just goes with being a K-pop fan, where fans are like, "I want to go to Korea." But I think
I
as
will
they
say
get older, things might change.
I will say that, you even if you get older, you don't really lose your passion for your hobbies because I've also went through a period of not being like watching anime or doing anything with anime for a long time. And when I was going through it, I've always been going through it, but when I I think when it was like the worst, yeah, I think it was the worst of it where I was just like, I need something to feel like a break or like an escape. And it was anime. Like that really just made me extremely happy. I will always crack up with anime. And I was like, why did I ever stop? And I think the same thing goes for like K-pop. So if it has a special place in your heart, always remember that because it'll always be there. And you may get older, but you can still like the things that you like. It doesn't mean like you're more mature. It doesn't mean you're cooler just because you don't like it anymore. It's you really just need to do what makes you happy, and that's the point. Do what makes you happy. Who cares? That's it.
I agree.
But you had fun. I'm so glad you had fun.
Yeah.
And I think the next
Wait,
time, what?
I was gonna say with the episode or with the concert because we had talked about the concert right before.
Oh, I guess we're both.
Yes, with both. But the episode was fun. It was interesting to kind of sit and think like, how have things changed,
Or did they
or
change?
did they change? Yeah, that was
If
it.
things
Was
didn't change
interesting.
to like, I'm talking to the listeners. If things didn't change for you, that's fine. We're not telling you that it's got to change.
No, it can stay exactly the same.
You could say it the same,
I just
and
think it
that
has a lot to do too with like your mindset. Like for me, like wanting to go to Korea more now than before, it's because I have like a goal. Like I have a visualization of like this is what I would want to do if I go there,
is.
and I think that just helps a lot.
Oh, for sure. That helps a lot. It helps. Like when you have a goal or like dream to go a certain place for a certain amount of time and it's like feasible, for sure. Well, I'll be visiting you and we'll go to all the cafes. That's all I know.
Agreed.
And then I'll go to Japan and then you can come to Japan. And then you can go back because you can't stay there because there's too much seafood there.
Oh, poor Jeremy.
It's, there's some, you got some meat over there. It is a lot of fish though.
It is a lot of fish.
I watch a lot
They're
of
an island.
I watch a lot of I'm really into the daily cooking vlogs. That's all I've been watching. And I found the Japanese girls. Look out. It was just the Korean girlies. I found the Japanese. So now I know. I'm learning the dishes. I'm excited. But it is a lot of fish.
It is, yes. And
So
he
I
doesn't
get it.
like fish.
Man, I want to go to Japan with Selena, but she's allergic to like octopus, and I'm just like,
Oh.
don't want to risk that. I don't know if like cross contamination is a thing, but let's just not. Let's not do that. So I got to think of something else. Maybe I'll just drag my nieces with me.
I'm sure they'd be fine with that.
Oh, they would love it. They would think that was so cool. So I guess if you have any things that changed for you, you can let us know on our Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah. Or if you have any current aspirations concerning K-pop and what it's gotten you into and interested in that haven't changed and are just like a thing that you came up with now, feel free to share that as well.
Yeah, and also answer, are flower or like the K-pop type still a thing, like the flower boy or like
Yeah, yes and no. It's not as much of a thing now.
that was kind of cool. I was just curious.
It's not much of a thing anymore.
That's okay.
And I think a lot of
Flower
it
boy
has to
type
do
wasn't really my thing anyway.
I think a lot of it too has to do with the fact that some groups don't even have like standard positions anymore
That's
in
so.
in the sense that like there's not like a center or a visual of the group. It's just like here are your
I like that
members.
they.
Yeah. Like
That's nice.
it's all everybody's well rounded. Like you'll still have a rapper and that sort of thing, but it's not like this is their position and they have to stick to it.
I think the visual was ridiculous because you're all beautiful.
Literally. And there's a lot of groups that like Us, for example. Us doesn't have a leader.
What?
Mhm.
Times have changed. I know that's chaos. Well, I guess it's not because
No, it's not because they
have the
said
leader like the
dorm
oldest.
dorm wise too, not even the oldest. They just said dorm wise, they have different things that everybody is good at. And so like if they go to a broadcast someone's in charge of speaking just because they're better at like speaking.
That is so nice.
Someone in the dorm is in charge of certain things and like organizing schedules because they're better at
It's
this.
like
So they like distribute
an actual job.
they just distribute the responsibilities instead, and so they don't have like a leader. It's a literal team effort.
It's literally a job requirement. Like you're using your job skills in idle form. It's working out. That's great. That's so nice.
So that's just something that's changed a little bit too.
Okay. Okay. I learned something new today. But I guess that's it. Next time we talk, it will probably be June comebacks. Are you guys
Yes.
tired of June comebacks every month? You shouldn't be, because why are you here?
Yeah, right. We like comebacks every month.
I'm excited because it feels like it was a lot. It's a lot this month.
Has there been a lot?
I feel like it. Maybe it's because I'm more on top of it. Like as time goes on, I'm more on top of comebacks, so it feels like I have more
That's fair.
instead of trying to wait. I mean, granted, it was terrible last time, but I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like there's a lot of comebacks. At least maybe it's comebacks like I'm interested in.
This month? Was there? I don't know. I
I
haven't
feel
been.
like it. For
Okay.
me, I don't know.
I have no idea.
Me neither.
I don't. I'm just
Maybe it's because I
I'm looking at
recognize
the
her
list.
now.
Do you?
I know that. No, that sounds familiar. I'm excited. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, I'll believe you. I'll believe you if that's what you say. That's what you think.
That's what I say, and that's what I think.
I'll believe you then.
We'll find out next time if that still holds true.
If it's correct or not. Okay. Well, like we said, share your goals, aspirations concerning K-pop and what it's helped get you into. And next time will be June comebacks. Lacey is right.
Ah,
And we will see you next time.
bye.
Bye.